Sino-sino ang pwedeng kumain ng more than 50 gram of net carbs in a day? We are in low carb. We are eating reduced carbohydrate when it comes to diet. That is what we recommend sa general public. But we have to address also na merong mga special population that can actually accommodate or can tolerate more than the usual 50 grams. So para sa mga baguhan pa lang sa low carb, I will show you kung ano ang ibig sabihin when it comes to reducing your carbs at kung kailan ka pwedeng kumain ng more than that 50-gram allowance. So again, low carb nutrition is limiting yung carbohydrate intake natin to a maximum of 50 grams. So why 50 grams? Kailangan muna nating i-discuss yan so that everybody will be on board sa ating pag-uusapan. Bakit nililimit natin to up to 50 grams lamang sa araw-araw ang general public except this 5 population? Ito, ang dahilan dito ay para i-avoid yung insulin effect sa ating blood sugar, so sa ating dugo, ang effect din ng insulin sa fat build-up or pag-accumulate ng taba sa ating katawan, including na sa ating mga internal organs, and also yung pag-build up ng mga misfolded proteins o yung mga proteins na hindi muscle but problematic kind of protein, and also to avoid the inflammation na secondary na nangyayari when there is always elevated insulin. Based on studies kasi, if you consume more than 50 grams of net carbohydrates a day, nagsaspike na yung insulin sa katawan. At yung mga effect nito over time ay nabibuild up na. And this can cause diabetes, obesity, sa mga hindi naman tabain. Pwedeng walang obesity, pero pwedeng merong fatty liver, and meron ding mga tumors, mga bukol-bukol na tumutubo. And the most common sign of inflammation would be aches and pain. Pwede sa kasukasuan, joint pains, muscle pains, kahit sa ipin. So, kapag parating sumasakit yung inyong ipin, that might also be a sign of inflammation from too much insulin and too much carbohydrates. That's the reason why generally we would like to avoid the insulin spike, and we like to limit yung ating intake of carbohydrates to up to 50 gram of carbohydrates lamang in a day. Ang katumbas po ng 50 gram of carbohydrates, kung kakainin natin yung usual na high carb sa pagkaing Pinoy, would be mga 2 pandesal, 1 cup ng rice, and then kakaunting pasta, maybe yung usual serving ng fast food na spaghetti, yon, mga 50 gram of net carbs na yon, and also 1 patatas. And that is not what we recommend. Kahit pa meron kang 50 gram allowance sa isang araw ng carbohydrate, hindi pa rin yung kind of carbohydrate na nire-recommend natin. Because yes, those carbohydrates are considered as complex carbohydrates, mataas sila sa starch, pero these kinds of carbohydrates are easily broken down into glucose. Madali pa rin silang makakapasok sa ating dugo as glucose, and with that, ito ay pwede pa rin mag-elevate ng insulin spike, especially if you are eating them. Kinakain mo sila in one sitting, sa isang kainan lang, diretso na 50 grams yung nauubos. So that's why we choose the complex carbohydrates na mataas sa fiber if ever talagang hindi maiwasan yung carbs. And 50 gram of net carbs would actually be around 1,500 grams or 1.5 kilo ng gulay. So that's already the equivalent. And for others naman, if you really want to incorporate like seasonal fruits, so few slices of fruits distributed in a day, that can also be accommodated. Pero for us na who knows, na alam natin na as much as possible, ayaw nating magpadala sa carbs, ayaw nating magsanay ulit kasi when we get our body used to it, hahanap-hanapin at hahanap-hanapin natin ito. Generally, in our household, wala kaming intentional carbs. Wala kaming plano talaga na kakain kami ng ganitong carbs in a day. What we usually want is just incidental carbs. Kung ano lang yung nasasama na hindi mo na kailangang bilangin because it's just so little, na kung makakain ka man, then it's okay, hindi mo kailangan mag-worry. that can be part of the condiment. So yung mga spices, yung mga sahog sa pagkain na pampalasa like tomatoes, onions, garlic. Sometimes meron ding mga maliliit na mga vegetables like bell pepper, pechay, cabbage. Those are the common carbs that we have, or sayote. And sometimes cucumber din. Those are the things that we usually have and hindi na nalalagpas sa 50 grams because kakaunti nga lang. And when it comes to fruits, we have avocado because avocado, meron pa rin carbs yan. As much as it is high fat and low carb, pero meron pa rin yung carbs. So when it comes to avocado, maybe one avocado lang a day, and if ever you need 2 avocados, make sure na hindi mo sila maubos in one sitting, or else marami-rami na rin yung carbs dyan. Our usual source of carbs from fruits would be lemon or calamansi. Nilalagay namin pampalasa sa aming pagkain like sausawan, or when we have our homemade na mga lemonade na mga juices without sugar, of course. So now, on to our topic, sino-sino ang pwedeng mag 50 gram of net carbs in a day. So, meron lang tayong 5 special populations. And hello to everyone, to our live viewers. And thank you for watching. Make sure na ma-share nyo ito in your timeline. And I hope, of course, we will see you on the National Low Carb Day 2023 co-presented by Burp Low Carb Delhi. So, eto na, 5 population. Number 1, of course, growing children. So, yung mga bata na malaki pa and growing children, good news, pwedeng until 18, 19 years old yan, especially sa mga lalaki. So, growing children na walang insulin resistance, or walang diabetes, or else kung meron ng diabetes, merong insulin resistance na nakikita natin ngayon, hindi na ganon ka-rare, no? Marami ng bata na batang-bata pa may diabetes na. Sometimes, the very early sign daw of possible magkagiging diabetic yung anak nyo, if parating merong visit sa dentist, parating sira yung ngipin, at parating merong tooth decay and maraming problem when it comes to gums. Those are signs na too much na talaga yung nabibigay ninyong sugar sa mga bata, and it's so sad, hindi natin alam na kung hanggang saan yung epekto ng sugar. Most likely, hindi lang yan magsa-stop in their teeth, pwede yang makasira sa kanilang katawan. Especially sa mga bata na chubby, sometimes we consider it as cute, but if it's already too much, tapos nangingitim na yung kanilang buttocks, yung kanilang siko and creases, that can be a sign of insulin resistance na. So, if merong ganon yung mga bata, actually, mas makaka-benefit sila from low carb. But for normal children naman, and then of course, no, when it comes to eating talaga, as much as we do not want sobra yung carbs, we want to emphasize on increasing the protein intake of children para mas maximize yung height nila, yung ma-maximize yung growth potential nila, and of course, the healthy fats. Healthy fats is very important for the development of the brain. And the brain is one of the most metabolic or active organs sa ating katawan. If mababa sa fats, yung pagkain, pwedeng hindi ma-maximize yung intellectual potential ng bata. Sayang naman kung ganon because you wouldn't know, baka genius pala yan or sila na pala sana ang makaka-invent ng next na answer sa maraming problema sa mundo. However, since hindi na-maximize kasi nakulang sa good fats, ay baka hindi ito ma-reach. So that's why when it comes to growing children, emphasize on good kinds of fats and also increase protein intake. And on the side, gawin na lang on the side yung mga carbs. And later, we will discuss kung ano-anong carbs yung ideal when it comes to increasing their carbohydrate allowance. I have a friend before, yung sinasabi niya sa kanyang mga anak when she introduced low carb in their family, if they will eat high carb pizza, they can only eat 1 slice. Kasi yung 1 slice niyan, nasa 20 to 30 grams of net carbs na yan. And of course, that's just for snacks, no? Meron pa silang meal on the other times of the day. So sabi niya, if you will eat high-carb pizza, you can eat only 1 slice. But if you will eat low-carb pizza, yung gawa niya mismo sa bahay, gamit ang almond flour, coconut flour, or yung mga cheese crust na pwedeng gawin. So yung mga cheese, tutunawin lang, patitigasin, yun ang magiging crust. or egg crust, pwede rin gawin yan for pizza, you can eat the whole plate because the whole plate is still less carbs. Magkokonti nito ng still less carbs as compared to high carb ng one slice lang. So that's one of the mindset that you can actually tell your children. So number 2 and number 3. So, pregnant women and breastfeeding women na wala ring gestational diabetes at walang frank diabetes. So, for this population na walang diabetes, they can accommodate because they are producing milk para pagkain ng bata, and the milk component per se ay magkakaroon ito ng carbs, magkakaroon ito ng lactose or galactose, and that might need some extra carbs as compared to the usual. Still, it's not essential. Yung sinasabi natin, hindi rin kailangan i-max out o padamihin talaga. If you belong to these groups, hindi rin important na i-maximize nyo yung 100 grams of carbs na yon. But just know na from time to time, you can tolerate this para hindi naman kayo ma-stress. Pregnant women who's growing children in their bodies, growing baby in their body, can also tolerate provided na walang diabetes. So why is that na we emphasize na dapat walang diabetes yung sa population ito? When in fact, for the longest time, we thought na kapag merong diabetes, iniinom na gamot, all the more na kailangan ng carbs. My take on that would be, bakit ka kakain ng carbs para mag-adjust ka sa gamot when what you can do is actually adjust the medication if ever hindi mo na ito kailangan. Diabetic medications, mostly nag-a-address yan to lower the sugar from our body na tumataas with our food intake. The moment we lower our glucose intake, then yung pangangailangan natin or our need to lower that blood glucose ay pwedeng mawala na. And if you keep on doing that because hindi kayo nag-enroll sa ating diabetes LCF masterclass, ay baka ito ay mag-lead into dangerous hypoglycemia. So I hope when you start doing low carb, especially sa meron ng iniinom na gamot, try to make sure na you do it the proper way, the guided way. We have coaches naman. We have coaches and also low-carb doctors who can guide you for you to do it the sustainable way para hindi mawala yung parang miraculous effect ng low-carb when it comes to healing, when it comes to you doing it right. So, children, pregnant women, and also breastfeeding women na walang problema sa blood sugar can increase their tolerance, can increase their intake of carbs, and they can tolerate a little higher than the general public. But for us, for example, who doesn't belong to these groups, especially merong mga family history of diabetes, then you have to be cautious, okay? Don't worry, kahit pa hindi kayo na-belong dito, from time to time, you may accommodate them provided that alam nyo na hindi kayo dapat magpapadala at magpasway na naman sa high carb way of eating. So, Group 4 or Special Population 4 na pwedeng makatolerate ng extra carbohydrates would be any adult, pwedeng babae, pwedeng lalaki, with heavy physical activity. So, baka merong mga dyan, although it's still not a need but yung mga marathoners and yung mga nag-exercise na considered as heavy exercise, doing up to 5 workouts in a week, those can accommodate extra na carbohydrates, especially na these kinds of exercises are going to promote insulin sensitivity. So when you are insulin sensitive, you can accommodate extra carbs kasi mas papasok yan sa inyong muscles. It can go inside your muscles to help build muscles. And also, madali din itong mabiburn because there are certain muscle group na obligate talaga na sugar burner depending on what muscle groups you choose. So you can accommodate that. But again, it's not a requirement. And our fifth group would be anyone who is into muscle building because the fourth group, pwedeng pwedeng cardio, heavy cardio workout. But when it comes to the fifth group, muscle building talaga, weightlifting, because that is intended to help the muscles grow. And if you were able to watch, yung last episode natin with the founders of Burp Low Carb Deli, We discussed there low carb for muscle building, and know na kahit pa may times that you can increase your carbs when it comes to eating, yung sinatawag nating carb cycling, there will also be times na i-reduce mo yung overall intake ninyo to make sure na mat-trim down talaga yung extra fats to push your body to retain the muscles na nagawa ninyo. But again, it's not necessary. Hindi lang talaga siya required. It might take a little longer for muscles to build up the way, for example, yung muscles na build up with extra carbs, but the carbs but the muscles that you can grow with low carb will be actually more solid. If you follow other low carb doctors, mostly abroad, who's into carnivore, full carnivore, yung muscles nila is even harder, better, stronger as compared nung kumakain sila ng carbs. When they went into full carnivore, na as in 0 gram of carbohydrates, ay mas naging maganda pa yung kanilang muscle composition. Muscle composition when it comes to their overall body physique. So, yun, those are the 5 populations na pwedeng maka-accommodate ng extra carbs up to 100 grams of carbohydrates. But generally, kung hindi tayo nabelong sa group na ito, we can just safely go and continue with 50-gram net carbs. Even if you are healing, kahit meron kang injury, tapos or bago ka na operahan, you don't need carbs. I feel so bad na meron akong patient na hindi maganda yung kanyang healing. And I already told her about low carb only to find out na binibigyan pala siya ng pineapple juice at apple and papaya every day, thinking na yun yung maganda for healing. When you are under stress, when you have injury, your body naturally produces more glucose than normal. Kaya meron tayong tinatawag na stress hyperglycemia. At if sasabayan mo yan ng extra glucose, especially na parang custom na natin, no, when we visit family and relatives in the hospital, nagdadala tayo ng maraming fruits, that might actually be not the best for them because mag-a-add lang yan ng extra sugar and inflammatory and glucose burden sa kanilang katawan. When it comes to healing, actually the best pa rin is fasting. At sa pagkain, make sure it's low carb, merong good amount of proteins and also healthy fats. So, sa mga considerations dito that you can apply kahit pa hindi kayo kasama sa 5 groups na ito, okay, remember yung tolerance over need for glucose. Generally, we have 0 need for glucose talaga kasi nga glucose is considered non-essential when it comes to biochemical processes ng ating katawan. Ibig sabihin, kahit pa hindi tayo kumain ng glucose, ay ang katawan natin ay magproproduce ng kanyang sariling glucose through the process of gluconeogenesis galing sa amino acids, galing sa fats na triglycerides at mabe-breakdown ito and can be made into glucose sa maliit na component ng katawan natin na mangangailangan ng glucose. So, external or exogenous sources of glucose ay hindi talaga kailangan. But again, if you belong to this special population, ay pwede namang mag-accommodate, you can tolerate more. So, iba yung tolerance over need or kailangan talaga. Number 2 consideration would be the type of carbohydrates. Even if you have 50 or 100 grams of carbohydrates that you can tolerate in a day, ano-ano yung sources of carbs nito? Of course, wala pa rin yung mga nasa danger list. So, yung food list natin, always look at our food list and focus on the safe list pa rin of JGC Rojo food list. And sometimes, if you want to increase your carbs, I hope you will get it at the caution list if hindi kaya lahat ng nasa safe list. So, nasa caution list natin would be the complex carbohydrates na mataas sa fiber din. So, you can have there yung mga ibang recommendations na low carb but still, no, it can still be high carb kung sobra-sobra yung nakakain. So, control it. So, meron tayong sweet potato up to mga 1/4 kilo in a day. So, that can have the approximated 50, 80 to 100 grams of net carbs in a day. Meron ding other root crops like like patatas, and of course, meron ding mga squash or pumpkin or kalabasa and others na nilalagay natin, isa sa mga gusto natin, but we know it can be high carb kapag sobra. So, carrots. So all those things are complex carbohydrates na mataas na nutritional value, pero pwede pa rin maging high carb kung sobra-sobra. I hope you avoid pa rin eating sugar, plain sugar, fructose, yung mga soft drinks as a source of carbs. So one glass of soft drinks na baso would just be around 40 to 50 grams of net carbs. So kung isipin nyo, for those who can tolerate, baka sabihin nyo, uy, pwede pala akong uminom ng 2 basong soft drinks in a day. But again, kapag ito ay very high glycemic index na kind of sources of sugar, mag-spike pa din yung insulin mo, and that's one thing that we want to avoid. So as much as possible, yung sa ating considerations, hindi lang yung type of carbs, but how much in a day and how often yung pagkain nyo ito in a span of year and in a day kung kailan nyo ito kakainin. I hope you don't consume your 50 or 100 grams of carbs in one sitting sa isang meal lang, but you disperse it in 3 meals kung kayo ay naka 3 meals a day, or kahit 5 meals at 8-hour interval. So pwede kayong mag-breakfast at 8, and then pwede kayong kumain ng snacks at 10, and then mag-lunch at 12, another snacks at 2, at pwede kayong mag-last meal ng 4, and then if you are still on muscle bulking, pwede nyo extend yung inyong eating habit until 6 p.m. So that's 10, 14 kind of fasting na. So pasok pa rin sa ating circadian fasting that you should stop eating tapos na dapat yung dinner comes 4 to 6 hours before your intended bedtime. And eto, how often in a year? Because our low carb and fasting way of lifestyle, no, we patterned this in evolutionary na side. And when it comes to evolution, hindi naman tayo parating naka-fasting. So there are really times na merong food abundance. But at most, yung food abundance natin kung pwede once a year lang. We can dictate that as harvest time or yung mga time before winter, before fasting time. So kahit pa hindi kayo part ng groups na ito, you can accommodate sometimes cyclical na or seasonal kind of increasing your carbs, but not all throughout the year. At least once a year lang siguro. So you can assign. Before, when I was still starting, nag-a-assign ako ng Christmas season as my own parang harvest season. I allow myself to increase carbohydrate intake during Christmas season. At yun lang yun. After Christmas season na matatapos dapat by January 1st, okay, hindi na yan mag-extend ng Chinese New Year and Valentine's, okay, January 1st lang, balik na sa low carb. But I realized later on na hindi rin pala kailangan. It's easier to stay in this way of life sustainably kapag consistent na lang. So I think it's been 2 or 3 years na din na I removed talaga and I just stick to 50 gram or lower carbs in a day regardless of season, regardless of occasion. So these are the mindset that you can think of anytime you might consider going on higher carb. And mind you, when you go that route, baka pwede kayong madala at mahirapan kayong bumalik ulit. So if you think you will have that risk or problem, might as well, wag na yan puntahan na daan. Okay? So I hope you enjoyed our tonight's episode. Alam nyo na kung sino-sino ang mga pwedeng mag more than 50 grams up to 100 grams of net carbs in a day. And I hope to see you on National Low Carb Day 2023 happening on October 1. That's going to be a Sunday, October 1, still at the FILINVEST tent. So yan, our early bird is still open at www.nationallowcarbday.com. So hanggang July 31 lang po yung early bird rate natin. So I hope you grab that opportunity because murang-mura lang po at only 850 pesos for the general admissions. Face-to-face na yan. You'll have access na to the whole day of our program and also sa ating Low Carb Expo na pagsasama-samahan ng ating mga sponsors. We have Lorene, we have Just Go Low Carb Perfect Match, we have Natural, Shapes, Keto Cake, Sweet Best, Pepti, and Gabri's, of course, Keto Mojo, and we have Keto Zone, Health Max Care, Cafe Viva, LCF Essentials, and Keto Cocina. Maraming salamat po. You can join there and many more. Marami din pong raffles and special prizes and surprises na magaganap on our National Low Carb Day, which will not just be about low carb, no? It's the overall lifestyle talaga that we can enjoy in this way of life kasama yung mga pinakamamahal nating mga low carb advocates in the country. So I hope to see you there. Message nyo lang yung admins natin in case you have problems registering sa ating website. And of course, for more learning, open lang yung ating LCF Masterclass by yours truly. Accessible for only 1,500 pesos, 3 months unlimited access na to the videos of your choice, the disease of your choice, especially diabetes, weight loss, hypertension, PCOS, fatty liver, GERD, obesity for children and adults, at marami pang iba. So maraming salamat everyone. Always remember, of course, to stay low carb so that we all stay safe. Maraming salamat. Maraming salamat also to our partners. Thank you. Bye-bye. National Low Carb Day 2023 is co-presented by Burp Low Carb Deli. We would like to thank our platinum sponsors, Perfect Match Low Carb Selections, Lorene Goodness from Coconuts, Just Go Low Carb, Shapes Keto Cakes, Naturals, Pep D, and Sweet Best. We also would like to thank our gold sponsors, Keto Mojo, Health Max Care, Gabris, Cafe Viva, and Keto Zone. Also, Keto Cocina for our silver sponsors.